So guys, today's topic of discussion is on Azure VM custom images. We also call it as VM custom images, and then there's something called Azure snapshots. Okay, so we'll start with custom images. Okay, so when we say custom images, okay, what are these custom images? So custom images are a set of predefined configuration. Custom images are a set of predefined configuration which helps us to deploy a VM with a specific configuration. So let's say that in my company I have different projects who use different set of applications. Okay, for an instance, if one of my team uses, let's say it's an SAP team, and that has some 10 or 15 applications that they every time require when they request any virtual machine. So whenever they request any virtual machine, it doesn't make any sense that we start deploying virtual machine from scratch by deploying a VM, then one of my engineers is deploying their applications one by one. Okay, so it doesn't make any sense and it is very time consuming. So to overcome this issue, in enterprises, what we usually do is we create an image. Okay, and when we create the image, what we usually do is we ask the application team to install all the set of applications on that VM. And the way we do is we will create a virtual machine, we will hand it over the virtual machine to them. Okay, and then what we will do is we'll ask them to install all their applications on that specific VM. And once that is done, then we'll take a control of that VM and we will create an image of that specific VM. Okay, so the benefit of this will be the next time when they request any virtual machine, instead of creating a new VM from scratch and install applications one by one, we can directly deploy their virtual machines from the custom image that we had created. Okay, the benefit would be we will not be we have to install those applications from scratch, and we can simply install the virtual machine, patch the VM according to the latest updates, and join the machine to the domain and hand it over to them. Okay, so this becomes your life easier and the deployment will be too fast as well. So with this, let me jump on to the practical. So I'm going to virtual machine and creating a virtual machine first, and then we'll add some applications to the virtual machine and then try to create an image. Okay, so the way it is done is I'll click on add, and then what I can do is let's see. So I'm creating a new resource group for this VM. I would say custom images -rg. Okay, this is the name of my resource group and not the image. I can give any name to my virtual machine. I would say custom VM. I would select the region in which I would like to deploy this VM. I'm choosing East to West2. What should be the operating system can be selected by you. So I want to create an image for, let's say, Windows Server 2019. Okay, I've selected Windows Server 2019 and I'm going with a heavy configuration. Though this configuration does not matter, because when you capture an image, it does not captures the hardware configuration, but rather it only captures the OS configuration. So I'm going with some 4 GB and 4 cores processor and 16 GB RAM to have a faster machine. Username. Okay, so this username is to be defined by you. To access this virtual machine, I will need to allow certain ports. In my case, it's RDP. I'll click on next. So if you look at the disk section, okay, you can create your virtual machine in two different ways, or rather you can use different types of disk when you're deploying a virtual machine. So there are two different types of disk, like unmanaged disk and managed disk. Okay, at the moment I am creating this virtual machine with managed disk. So if you want to switch over to unmanaged disk, you can switch it from advanced tab, and you just have to choose use managed disk as no, and it will pop you for storage account. Okay, but in my case, I just want to create this virtual machine with managed disk, so I'm not changing anything here. I'll quickly jump onto the networking section, in which I will be asked to choose my virtual network. So I want my IP address to be assigned from CTVNet. And then I have three different subnets here. We have an Azure Bastion subnet, I have a DC, and then subnet 1. So I'll choose subnet 1 since I would need access to this virtual machine over a public IP address. I'm asking Azure to create a new public IP address for me. If I scroll down in the management, so this settings doesn't matter since we are creating an image and it only captures the OS configuration. So irrespective of what configuration you choose here, it will not reflect in your image. So for now, I'm turning off my boot diagnostics. I'll click on off, next, next, and then finally I click on review plus create. And then finally I'll click on create. So this will start deploying a new virtual machine for me in my subscription. Okay, so till the time this virtual machine is getting deployed, for our next practical, which is snapshot practical, we would need storage explorer. So let me quickly check if I have the storage explorer installed on my machine, or I'll have to install it. Okay, so I have this Azure storage explorer, so I don't have to worry about this. Any questions? Meanwhile, this deployment is getting deployed in Azure.
No, sir.
Okay.
Can we use a Storage Explorer in the portal itself, or is it compulsory to use an installed one only?
Okay. So as of today, there is no full-fledged version of Storage Explorer on Azure portal. So
Oh,
it does provides you with the functionality to use Azure Storage Explorer, but again that is specific to a storage account. So if I want to show you, let's go to storage account. Okay, and if I want to explore this storage account, I will be only able to use Storage Explorer for this specific storage account if you're going with a cloud version of Storage Explorer. So how do I do this? So if you click on the storage account, you have an option here called Storage Explorer. Okay. Now the flaw is this Storage Explorer will only be able to list all the files which are part of just this storage account. So each and every time when I want to navigate between different storage account, I'll have to go to respective storage account and then click on that specific storage account and get the details. So instead of using this, the cloud version of Storage Explorer, if you use the desktop version, so if you use the desktop version of Storage Explorer, you don't have to navigate through each and every storage account and then look for those respective files. But here in this case, in the desktop version of Storage Explorer, all your storage accounts which are part of your subscription will be listed in one window, and you can easily navigate between those storage accounts just like you do it in a file explorer. So on the left hand side, it will list all the storage accounts, and you can simply expand any of the storage accounts and then go to respective folder and get to the files.
okay.
And I just forget to mention this point. When you create a custom image, the process for creating a custom image for a virtual machine created with managed disk is different, and for a virtual machine which has been created with unmanaged disk, the process is different. So if a virtual machine is created with managed disk, you can capture the image of a VM from the Azure portal itself. But let's say if you if you have created a virtual machine with unmanaged disk, okay, so for that you need to capture the image via a PowerShell script. Let me see if I can get the PowerShell script for you. Uh, capture ASM image. Let's go to ARM scripts. So here you go, capture ARM image, and then creating VM from an ARM image. Okay, so if I open this, so this is what the script is. So what we are doing in this specific script is we are logging through Azure through PowerShell and creating a session with our Azure portal in this line. Then we are selecting a subscription in which we have to work. Then we have defining certain variables. One variable is the name of the resource group, then the name of VM to be captured. So if I want to capture a VM whose name is, let's say, test-VM, so you have to specify the name of your VM. Then what you do is you have to stop the VM. So this line will stop the VM, and then before the image is captured, we all know that you have to run Sysprep on the virtual machine and generalize the VM. So this line is basically generalizing the VM, and then this is the final line which is capturing the image. Okay, and this image will be stored in the storage account in which this VM in which the VM was created. So this is a PowerShell script to capture an image of a virtual machine which was created with unmanaged disk. But at the same time, if you are creating a virtual machine with, let's say, a managed disk, so you don't have to do all this stuff. It's very simple. Microsoft has provided that capability in Azure portal itself. You can simply click on capture button and it will do all this job for you in the backend automatically. So I'm in my storage explorer. I'll have to add my account again since I've changed my password. Add an account. Add an Azure account. I'll click on sign in. And it doesn't matter where your storage explorer is. Now I'm accessing my storage explorer from my local machine. Okay, so with this, it has logged me in and is showing me the name of my subscription, which is MSDN platform. In your case, it could be free trial or it could be pay as you go, depending upon the type of subscription you have opted for. So I'll click on apply. And this is the best part. Okay, the best part is when you're using Azure Storage Explorer, it lists all the storage accounts in just one go, and you can easily navigate through this different storage accounts with a simple click. Okay, so if I want to explore the storage, cloud traveler storage, I can expand this cloud traveler storage. I can expand my blobs, and if I click on my VHD container, I would be able to see the list of VHDs that I currently have in my cloud travelers storage account. So you should see all the VHDs here in a moment. You can see here. Okay, but if you are using cloud version of Storage Explorer, you'll have to navigate through each and every storage account, go through Storage Explorer, and then explore the stuff. That's what the difference is between a cloud version of Storage Explorer and a desktop version of Storage Explorer. Am I clear, Allard?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I believe a virtual machine should have been created till now. Let me go to my virtual machine. Here what it says deployment succeeded. So this is my VM, custom VM, of which I want to create an image. I'll copy my public IP address, do an RDP. And now the next step would be I will install certain applications. on this virtual machine. So when you capture an image, all these applications will be captured into that image, and the next time when you start deploying VMs from this image, all the virtual machine will be created with all this set of applications. So you don't have to install this application one by one and unnecessary take an overburden of this application installation. So I'm interested in installing Google Chrome, one of the application that my team requires. Second is my team is also interested in WinRAR. But before I download these applications, since this is an Azure VM, by default downloads are blocked. So my first job would be to go to my browser settings and enable this download. So I'll go to Tools, Internet Options, Security, Custom Level, and then I'll enable my file download in this case. Enable, okay. Okay, and now I can go to google.com. If you're getting this prompt again and again, the hack is to uncheck this box and just click on close rather than clicking on add every time the message pops up. So I would say Google that I need Google Chrome. Click on download Google Chrome. Okay, there you go. I'll say download Chrome. Sometimes what it does is it doesn't allow us to download on Azure VM. So what you could do is you can anytime come to your laptop, get the installer, copy that installer into your Azure VM. So I'll remove this because it will just download this setup. Okay. Now what I can do is I can open up a new browser, new window. Okay. I'll go to download. I'll just copy this setup. Since this is in KB and it does an online installation, you don't need to worry. Or I'll go to the download section of this server and I'll copy this here. Okay, so this copying is done. I'll run this setup and leave it until it gets installed, and parallelly I can start download of my another application which in my case is WinRAR. So I would say Google that I need to download WinRAR and go to WinRAR x86. This is my 64-bit, so I'll go with 64-bit and I'll click on add. Google.com, download WinRAR. And let's also install one more application, which can be a small application. I can think of VLC Media Player. Though we don't install such applications on servers, since we are just doing it for test purpose, it doesn't matter what applications we are installing. So I'll click on download VLC. Alright, so we are done with setting up our server. If you look at our server, this server is running an operating system which is Windows Server 2019, and according to my application team's requirement, I've installed certain applications which they would need every time they request this virtual machine. So if you look at this is Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. It doesn't really matter about the hardware configuration, because when you create an image of an operating system, it does not captures the hardware configuration, but rather it only captures the OS configuration. Okay, so this is a Windows Server 2019 with 3 different applications which have been installed on my user's request. One is Google Chrome, the other one is VLC Media Player, and you should also see WinRAR. There you go. Okay, so now my users are expecting me to deliver this type of virtual machines whenever they request any virtual machine from the infrastructure team. Okay, but in our case, we will not be deploying these applications from scratch whenever we deploy a new VM for the respective team, because what we are trying to do now is we are trying to capture an image which will have all these applications pre-installed in it. Okay, so whenever we get a request from that specific team, we just have to deploy a VM from the image that we'll be capturing just now. Okay, but before we capture an image, there's a last step which we need to perform to clean up all the user SIDs from registry and to make a generalized image. So when I say generalized image, that is like a clean image which will not have any stale usernames. So in this specific case, if I navigate to my C drive users, you would see this profiles. Okay, so if you capture an image without doing a sysprep, what will happen is this user accounts will be carry forwarded to your image as well, which we don't want. Okay, so to clean up all this user accounts information from your registry, what we do is we run a sysprep, and the way we do is you can simply open run and type sysprep, or if you don't want this method, you can navigate to your C drive Windows System 32, and in System 32 you get a folder called Sysprep, and in the Sysprep you will find a utility called Sysprep utility. So you just have to open the Sysprep utility, and before you execute anything in the Sysprep utility, you have to be very careful when you're choosing your options. So the first option that you need to choose is generalize, and then since we are generalizing, we will not be bringing this virtual machine up once it is being generalized. So the option that you'll be choosing in the shutdown option should be your shutdown, and then I'll simply click on OK. So this process will now clean up all my stale user objects and their SIDs, and it will generalize the image, so that whenever we deploy any new virtual machine from this image, it will only have the newly created user accounts rather than carry forwarding all those stale accounts before we capture the image. So until this Sysprep is working, can we have some questions, please? Any questions, guys, on the discussion that we are having around custom image?
No.
So when we say we are going to deliver this image to any certain application teams, so how are we generally going with accesses? Like, do we have to define any roles for them so that they could use those storage accounts and create images and give rights to create VMs?
So when you're talking about accesses, okay, I'm not able to understand what type of access you're talking about. You're talking about access to a virtual machine or what it is?
Access to create virtual machines. So like I'm an admin, say I'm an global admin, so I have access to create resource groups and virtual machines and VNets and everything. So how is it achieved? Like, say I'm just a platform team person and I'm delivering the image to the application team. So um, is there any such mechanism so that they will get some roles so that they can create their own VMs, including resource groups and VNets and everything?
Okay, so the way this can be achieved is if you want to delegate permissions to the application team to deploy their VMs, okay? Usually what happens is you have a centralized team who does all this deployment. So if any team wants to have virtual machines in Azure, they would contact the respective team and that team would deliver virtual machines for them. But on the other hand, if you want that the application team should be able to deliver or to create virtual machines on their own, this can be controlled or this can be achieved via role-based access control. Okay, what you can do is you can grant either contributor or owner or a custom RBAC to those specific group of users to whom you want to delegate this permission, and based on that, they can deploy virtual machines on their own without depending on some other team.
Okay.
Any more question, guys? All right, so we have lost the RDP of our virtual machine, and that is what we were expecting since we had selected a shutdown option while we were doing Sysprep. So let's refresh the Azure portal and see the state of our virtual machine. So this is my virtual machine custom VM. It still says that it's in running state. It should ideally come into stop state since we are shutting it down from the OS level. Let me refresh the entire portal. Sometimes it takes time to reflect the actual status of your VM. Alright, so you can see here the status is showing as stop. So whenever you want to capture any image, okay, the virtual machine has to be always in stopped deallocated state rather than in stop state. So I'll additionally press a stop button on my Azure portal, and it says, do you want to reserve the public IP address? So I don't want to reserve any public IP address, and I'll click on OK. So this will make my machine into stop deallocated state in few seconds. So I'm waiting for this machine to get into stop deallocated state. Okay, so you can see the status has been changed to stop deallocated now, but the process is still running because we have not been notified yet that the VM has been deallocated. So we'll wait for a few seconds. There you go. So now let's reiterate the steps that we have done. So we have created a new virtual machine. We have installed certain applications which we want as a part of our image. So whenever we deploy VMs from that image, it should come up with all the pre-installed applications. Okay, we installed all the applications, and finally what we did is we did a Sysprep so that it can clean all the stale user objects, and see, not the user objects but rather user profiles, and we generalize the image so that whenever we deploy any new virtual machines using the image, it will not contain all the old user profiles. And finally, you have to click on capture button to create an image of this VM. So when you click on capture button, it will ask you for certain information. So on first place, it is asking you the name of your image. So I would say my SAP custom image. I'm just giving a random name. You should be following the naming standards your organization follows. So I'm giving something called my SAP custom image. It is asking your resource group. The reason why it is asking your resource group is because the image that you are capturing for a VM was created with managed disk. And as we all know that managed disks do not reside in a storage account, but rather managed disks reside in a resource group. And that's the reason it is asking us for a resource group. And then the last option that we have is, before creating the image, this virtual machine will be deallocated automatically. So even if you didn't deallocate the virtual machine, and if you came here to do a snapshot, or not snapshot rather, but capture, it will automatically deallocate the machine. But since we have already done this step, this is not useful for us. And then you should realize there's an option called automatically delete this virtual machine after creating the image. So you have to always check mark this option, because even if you don't check mark this option, what will happen is the image will be created, but your original VM will not be deleted. And even if you don't delete the VM, that VM is not of any use, since we have generalized the image, since we have generalized the virtual machine while doing a sysprep, it will not have any built-in usernames. And when it will not contain any built-in usernames, it will not allow you to log in. So instead of keeping it in a stale state, you can just check mark this option, automatically delete this virtual machine after creating the image, which will delete the original VM and create an image for it. So I'll just click on create, and this will take few seconds. It doesn't take much time to create an image. So it will take few seconds, and then it will start deleting the virtual machine. You can see here it has successfully created the image, and it has started the process of deleting your original VM. Meanwhile, any questions?
No, sir.
So if we create image in East US, we cannot, you deploy that image in another, region, right?
Correct. So images are region specific. So if you are creating an image in, let's say, East to West 2, you will not be able to use that image to deploy VMs in other region. So the way this has to be handled is you'll have to copy this image in different regions, and then you can deploy those VMs. And the way we copy these images is through via PowerShell. So if you look at the list of virtual machines, I don't see a VM name which was called as custom VM, okay, because that VM has been deleted after we created an image of it. Now it's time to deploy a VM from an image. Okay, does anyone has any question before we start our session of how to create a virtual machine from an image? Because this ends a topic called how to capture an image. Does anyone has any question? They can say yes, no.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll proceed now on how to create a virtual machine from an image which has been created by someone else, or which has been created by our team. Okay, The normal process of creating a virtual machine is the way we do is we go to virtual machines and then we click on add. But this actually creates a virtual machine with a marketplace image, or rather we could say a plain image or a plain VM which will not have any applications installed on it. And this is not what we are looking at. We are looking at an image that we have just captured which has all the set of applications. So I don't have to install each and every application from scratch for my image. So I'll go to all services. To locate your image, you can go to all services and then look for a service called images. And if you click on images, it will have the list of images that you have created in your subscription. So in my current subscription, I just have one image, which is my SAP custom image. To deploy a VM from this image, I would click on this image and I will have an option called create VM here. So I'll click on create VM. And then the next steps are similar to the ones of new VM creation. So I can select my custom resource group. If I want to deploy this VM in some other resource group, I can select this. So I'll create a new resource group, something called VM deployment -RG. I'll click on OK. The name of my VM, I would say my first custom VM. Okay. And see here, it will not allow us to change the region. The reason being is since we have captured this image in East US 2, it will not allow us to deploy VMs in some other region. So this will be always grayed out. I'll scroll down. You can also see the image which it has chosen is our custom image. It is asking us to select the size. So for my virtual machine, I'm going with 2-core processor and 4 GB RAM. I can select this configuration. See here, it is asking us to also specify the username of our for our new VM. I'll have to allow certain ports so that I can RDP into it. I'll click on next. I'll choose my hard disk as a standard hard disk. And if you look at in the advanced tab now, it will not allow you to choose unmanaged disk, because since we have captured an image of a VM which was created with managed disk, so it will only allow us to create managed disk VMs only. Okay, and you can see here, creating a virtual machine from a disk or image requires managed disk. Okay, so let's click on next. I'll have to choose my virtual network, which is CT VNet in my case. I can choose my subnet. I'll scroll down, click on next. It says, do you want to enable boot diagnostic? I don't want. Do you want to enable auto shutdown? I don't want. Click on next. Text, review plus create, and finally I would click on create. Click on create, and this will start the VM creation process, and this might take somewhere around 5 minutes. Do you have any questions, guys? Does anyone has any question?
No.
So for the last 45 minutes, what we saw is what is a custom image, how to create a custom image, and once the custom image is created, how to deploy VMs from a custom image. So these are the steps, or these are the services that we just saw. Now this VM deployment can take up to 4 to 5 minutes. We can wait until then. Or if anyone has any question, or if anyone wants to have any clarity, they can pitch their question. Meanwhile, this VM is getting deployed. No one has any question?
So once you go in all services and search images, we can see that there are two more options like OS image and VM image.
Okay, so these are in conjunction with your classic portal, the old one. Can you see something called classic in bracket?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if we go to all services and when you type images, this is what you're referring to, right? VM image is classic and OS image is classic.
Yes.
So in the bracket, it is explicitly mentioned classic. That means this does not applies to ARM, the one which you are using, ARM portal, but this rather it's in conjunction with your old classic portal, which is deprecated now. But still, there are some resources for customers who are using Azure. So for them, those options are still kept. It says deployment is still in progress. Let's wait until this deployment gets completed. All right, it says the deployment has been succeeded. And let's go to my virtual machines tab. And you should see the name of my VM is my first custom VM, which we have created from the custom image that we recently created. So I'll do an RDP of this VM. And you can see the moment you're logged in, you're able to see those applications, Google Chrome, VLC Media Player, and you should also see WinRAR as well. Let's go and search in Start menu whether we have WinRAR. And you can see this application. So this is the best part of creating images, which reduces the management overhead of infrastructure team. So if any of your application teams are frequently requesting virtual machines with certain set of applications, then in that case, it is not advisable to create a virtual machine from scratch and keep your one of the resources busy deploying those applications. So the best practice would be to create a custom image, keep it ready in your Azure portal, and whenever the request comes from that specific team, go ahead and deploy the virtual machines from custom image rather than creating those virtual machines one by one and deploying those applications manually. I hope this is clear. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes.
What about others?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Okay.
So, as we know that there are some applications that we can deploy as extensions as well. So, if we do it like that and then create a custom image, will they be retained?
So extensions is something which is which has no dependency on custom images. Okay, so during the time when you capture an image, okay, so during the time you capture an image, whatever applications that are installed as a part of your OS will be only captured in your image and no other extensions or no other applications.
Okay.
So that leaves like no dependency on the installation directory or path. Say I have certain applications wherein I have the program files partially saved on D drive. There are some log paths and log files which are configured on another drive rather than C drive. So when the image is created, it will capture all the configuration of the application side. So it does not matter whether it's on a C drive or D drive, right?
Okay, so again, to answer this question, there are two different ways. One is if you have saved certain configuration on D drive, that will not be retained, because when you capture an image of an operating system, it does not captures what is there as a part of your D drive, because that is not a persistent disk. That is a non-persistent disk. Number one. If you have captured an image of a virtual machine which also had a data disk, let's say E drive, and you have saved certain configuration on E drive, and you have captured an image of that specific VM, then what it will do is it will capture everything including E drive as well. So when you deploy a new VM, it will be deployed with a new hard drive as well, which will be E drive in your case.
Okay, sure.
Any questions, guys? No question? It's 9:52 already, and we have to look after snapshots. Shall we proceed or shall we stop here?
We can proceed, sir.
We can proceed.
What about others?
Yes, sir, we can proceed.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So the next practical is on snapshot. Okay, so I'll write some theory about snapshot. So what is a snapshot basically? So snapshot is a point in time restore, or we could say, or we can also say a restore point of an working state. Okay, what does that mean is, let's say I have an application server. Let's try to reproduce this in a subscription so that you guys will be clear with that. So I'll create one more VM, but this time I will be creating this VM with unmanaged disk rather than creating with managed disk, because working with managed disk snapshot is bit hectic. So I'll be showing you the concept with unmanaged disk. If you guys can spare time with me, then I'm absolutely fine to demonstrate with managed disk as well. But the only thing is we will have to use certain PowerShell skills, and then we can achieve this result. And that's why, to reduce the deployment time and to show this practical, I'm going with unmanaged disk. What was the resource group that I created? Custom images. So I'll create one more image called snapshot test. Snapshot test. Okay, I'm deploying this machine in East2S2. I'm going ahead with an 2016 server. We'll go with an heavy configuration so that my VM does not lags. I'll go with 4-core processor and 16 GB RAM. So select. They're asking me username. Sorry, choose a username, Azure admin, and then my local credentials, local username. I'll select my RDP port. Next, I want to use a normal hard drive, but this time I want to create a VM with unmanaged disk. So I'll choose use managed disk as no, and I will be asked to provide a storage account. So I'll choose my storage account, which is Cloud Traveler Storage, which is already created in my subscription. Next, then I'll have to choose a virtual network which will assign an IP address to my VM, and I will add this VM on the subnet 1. Next, I don't want any boot diagnostic to be enabled, no auto shutdown. Next, review plus create, and then Finally, I'll hit create button. So this will start creating a virtual machine with unmanaged disk. So guys, you have to understand that when you're working in Azure, we can work in two different ways. We can deploy our resources with managed disk, and we can deploy our resources with unmanaged disk. So if you know what is the exact difference between managed disk and unmanaged disk, then it's very good. And with this, what happens is when you're working with unmanaged disk and when you're working with managed disk, the functionality or the process in terms of capturing an image, in terms of creating a snapshot, is also different. So the way you create image for a managed disk VM will be different for a virtual machine which was created with unmanaged disk. So I have already shown you the script we need to use when you want to capture an image of a virtual machine which has been created with unmanaged disk. In same way, if you want to take a snapshot of a VM which was created with managed disk, the process is different. And if you want to take a snapshot of a VM which was created with unmanaged disk, the process is different. So you need to do a lot of exploration on Google how this processes are handled in production environment. Uh, but if you look at the overall architecture or logic, it's it's one and the same. Okay, the process is different. That doesn't mean that you have to do a lot of heavy implementation stuff to deal with a specific type of disk, managed disk or unmanaged disk. Okay, am I clear with this?
Yes.
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 So this will be the last practical for the day. What we are trying to achieve is we will create a virtual machine, which we are already doing. Once this VM is created, we will try to install an application which is called as Azure Storage Explorer. But what we will do is we'll install a older version, not the latest one, and then we'll try to reproduce a production related issue in our subscription and see how that goes. So we'll have to wait for a more couple of minutes. All right, so since this virtual machine is deployed now, we'll try to reproduce a practical use case. And the way I'm trying to handle this is we'll try to log into this newly created virtual machine. The name of my VM is Snapshot Test. Okay, so I'll grab the public IP address to an MSTSE. Okay, so since this VM has came up now, I'll try to deploy an older version of Azure Storage Explorer. Okay, so for that we will have to open our browser. Then again, you'll have to follow the same steps. You'll have to enable file download in your browser. This machine seems to be slow as compared to our previous 2009-10. So I'll go to Tools, Internet Options, Security, Custom Level, File Download. I'll enable this file download. It's okay. And then we'll try to open google.com. What happened? Okay, close. And then we'll try to look for an older version of Azure Storage Explorer. You would say Azure Storage Explorer, all versions. Let's see if we find any link which can list all the versions. So let's go to this Azure Storage Explorer. This gives details about Storage Explorer, but we are looking for previous versions. How do I get previous versions? Release notes, open source.
So maybe look for version history.
Yeah, exactly. You have previous version here. Uh, Windows version history. Where you mean to say version history? Did you see somewhere version history?
No, maybe just search in Google for version
Okay.
history.
Okay. Let's try to click on this download button and see whether it gives us the list of versions. Add those. No, it's not giving us version history. It's simply redirecting to the download tab. Something else, google.com. Azure Storage Explorer version history. Sorry, spelling mistake. Alright, so we have it here. Okay, so the latest version seems to be 1.6.2. I don't think so that would be the latest version. Let's click on the latest version here. Will we anyways require this. Download Storage Explorer. Can't save. So if I open folder, and this does not seem to be the latest one because it is redirecting to the previous Storage Explorer. We'll also download the latest one as well. Download Storage Explorer. Add, close. And this is the new one. So we'll go to the file explorer. So this is the previous one which we just downloaded. Go to the properties and check the details of version. So it says this is 1.7.0. The previous version says, and the new version is it's 1.8.1. So we can reproduce issue in our lab now. So what I'm doing is I'll close this, close all the tabs. I'm installing an older version of Azure Storage Explorer. Okay, I'll close this one as well, Storage Explorer. So click on install, next. Okay, it took a while to install Azure Storage Explorer, but finally it installed. So what we have done is we have created a virtual machine. So we are trying to reproduce a practical use case which we usually do it in a production environment. So I have a virtual machine on which, let's say this is my production application called Azure Storage Explorer. So I'm trying to access this application. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, I'm unable to find this application. It should be somewhere here. Yeah, you can see here, Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. I'll try to access this application. Everyone on the call knows how to access Azure Storage Explorer, and this is the older version, which is 1.7.0. So we are assuming this one of our client application, which is running an older version, and our application team has developed a newer version of this Azure Storage Explorer, which they want us to upgrade. Okay, but again the question is, when I upgrade my application, will that work smoothly or will it have some bugs? Okay, so I'll try to log into my Azure Storage Explorer. The way you do is you go to the account and click on add an account. So I'll try to add an account here. So I'll click on sign in and it will ask me for the credentials. I'll enter my credentials here, which is and if you look at the if you look at the back end, it says a newer version of Azure Storage Explorer is available, which is 1.8.1. Okay, but since we are running with an older version, that is what our application team is requesting us to upgrade now. Okay, so I'm logged into my application, which is Azure Storage Explorer, and I could see all my files which are part of my Azure Storage accounts. So if I go to my VHDs container, I will be able to see all the files which are part of that VHDs container. Okay, so this application is working fine. I don't have any problem, but my application team is insisting me to upgrade this Azure Storage Explorer to a newer version, and you can see that there's a new feature in the latest version which will allow us to transfer large amount of blob data, which is not available in our existing versions. Okay, but I'm afraid that if I simply upgrade my application to a latest version, and what if the application crashes or if the application didn't work as I had expected, how would I fail back to my old version? So in that case, I'll have to reinstall the server and try to install the application from scratch and then again restore all the backups. So to avoid the state of redesigning or redeploying the stuff, what the way we handle it in a production environment is we will capture the state of our virtual machine, the working state of virtual machine. So the way we do is, this is the working state of a virtual machine wherein the Azure Storage Explorer is running with an older version. So the way I'll do is I'll go to my Azure portal. So this is the virtual machine on which that specific application is hosted. I'll go to my disk section and try to grab the VHD URI so that I can take a snapshot of it. So to take a snapshot of a virtual machine which was created with unmanaged disk, you will always require the VHD URI, and the way you can get this detail is by going to disk section and click on the disks. So if you click on the disk, you have something called VHD URI here. Let's copy this and paste it in Notepad. So this is a disk of which I need to take a snapshot. Now what I can do is I'll turn off the machine. This is not the condition actually. Yeah, your virtual machine can be up and running even if you want to take a snapshot. So let's not turn off the machine. I'll log into my Storage Explorer, which has been installed on my laptop and not the one which has been installed into the virtual machine. Okay, so if I open my Storage Explorer, I'll have to open my notepad and see where this VHD is residing. This VHD is residing currently in a storage account whose name is Cloud Traveler Storage. Okay, in that the name of the VHD is Snapshot Test. Okay, so I'll go to my Storage Explorer. I'll try to refresh this since I had logged in earlier. It should show up here. The VHD should show up here. Let's try to do a refresh from here. Okay, so you can see the VHD here. Let's try to compare the name of the VMs, or not the VM, but rather the file name, snapshot test 20190629. So it's the same VHD. Now the way you take a snapshot is you just right click on the working VHD and click on create snapshot. Okay, so when you click on create snapshot, a process will automatically run and it will take a snapshot of the working VHD in which you have an older state of your application. Let's wait until this process gets completed. So it's making a snapshot. It should take few seconds and it says the snapshot has been created. Now to view the snapshots against a VHD, you have to right click on the VHD and click on manage snapshot. So when you click on manage snapshot, you will see there are two VHDs. One is the original VHD, okay, and the other one is a snapshotted VHD, the snapshot version of your VHD. And how to identify whether a VHD is a snapshotted VHD or an original VHD? The snapshot VHD will always have a timestamp. You can see here there's a timestamp of 29th June 2019 and the snapshot has been captured at 16:51. Now this is a GMT. This is not the time zone of my laptop. This is what you can say, I believe it's UTC. Okay, so if you want to see the snapshots against a specific VHD, you have to right click on the VHD and click on manage snapshots. Let me go back. Now I have an open hand to upgrade my application because now I don't have that worry in my mind that what if my application crashes. So even if my application crashes, I have a snapshot to which I can roll back. So let's go to our virtual machine and try to upgrade that application. So this application has been installed with older version. Let's see the properties. So if I open this application, this Storage Explorer, so it says it's 1.7.0 and the latest one is 1.8.1, which the tool was also showing us. Okay, so let me maximize this. Okay, so I'll close this application. Since I've already downloaded the latest version, I don't believe it's the latest version, but latest than my older one. Okay, so I have a latest version, I believe it's 1.8.1. So I'll install this application. Click on install. And it has started installing the latest version of my Storage Explorer, which is 1.8.1. Now the thing that we need to notice is, does it upgrades the existing version of our Storage Explorer or it installs a newer version? We'll see that in a few seconds. Okay, so we are done with this installation of newer version. Let's see if it has created a new version or it has upgraded the existing one. So I can see, okay, this is a shortcut. So let's try to open this Azure Storage Explorer and see what version it is. So it is 1.8.1. So we have successfully upgraded our applications version from the older one to 1.8.1. Okay, and now we are assuming that the application has crashed or you're unable to work on those features which you were previously able to work on. Okay, so now what you have asked to your infrastructure team is to revert those snapshot to the older version so that the working features can be utilized. Okay, am I clear until now? Can someone respond with yes, no?
Yes.
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 Yes, sir.
So we had an older version of Azure Storage Explorer which was running on a virtual machine, considering that as one of our client application, and your application team has requested you to upgrade that application to a newer version. But the hesitation that we had in our mind was that what if my application crashes after the upgrade? So what we did is we took a snapshot of our working state, which was with the older version, and now we have upgraded that application. And now what we are assuming is after upgrading that application, my my working features which used to work in my older version are not working in the new version. And now I'm asking my infrastructure team to roll back the snapshot or revert the snapshot. But the way we took a snapshot online, you cannot promote a snapshot online. So when your VM is up and running, you cannot promote a snapshot. Okay, so you'll have to deallocate your virtual machine. So the way it is done is I'll go to my Azure portal and I'll deallocate this VM. So I'll just click on stop, click on OK. Okay. So once this virtual machine is deallocated, the next step that I'll perform is I'll go to my Azure Storage Explorer. Okay. This is my original VHD, and this VHD has a lock associated with it. Now, what is the significance of this lock is whenever a virtual hard drive or a VHD is attached to any virtual machine, the state of that VHD is in leased state. So when you will see a locked button, that means the VHD is in leased state. Leased means the VHD is attached to some virtual machine. Okay, and when your VHD is in leased state, Azure will never allow you to promote the snapshot. So to promote a snapshot, once the VM is deallocated, you will have to break the lease, promote the snapshot, and then acquire the lease. So these are the three processes that you need to follow. So we'll wait for our virtual machine to get deallocated, and that has been deallocated. So I'll go to my Storage Explorer. I'll right click on my original VHD. So this is my original VHD and not the snapshotted VHD. So I'll right click on it and I'll click on break lease. Someone has not muted. Okay, can someone please mute? So I'll copy this VHD name, paste it here, and click on OK. And you would see that this lock will disappear now. Now it's time to promote the snapshot. And to locate the snapshot, I've already explained how to locate a snapshot. You can right click on the VHD, click on Manage Snapshot. Now this is the snapshot and this is the original VHD. The way you promote is right click on the snapshot and click on Promote Snapshot. It says promoting a snapshot will override the contents of the base blob with the contents of the snapshot. Would you really like to continue? So let's click on yes, and this will start the process of promoting. So it's promoting. If you are trying to promote a snapshot on a VHD which is locked, you will not be able to promote it. It will always fail. So it says the snapshot has been promoted. Now it's time to acquire the lease. Since we have already broken the lease for promoting the snapshot, now I'll right click on the VHD and click on acquire lease. Okay. Now since the lease is acquired, we are now free to start the VM. So I'll click on start now. This will start the virtual machine. And once the VM is started, we'll go to our virtual machine, try to log into our VM and see the version of our Azure Storage Explorer. It should be the older one. When we had taken the snapshot, during that time, whatever the version was of our Azure Storage Explorer, we should see that version and not the latest one, which was 1.8.1. So it says the virtual machine has been started. Let's copy the IP address. It's still yet to come online. Let's go back to our boot diagnostics and see if you are able to see. Okay, it's not configured. Settings on, so it just can't save. So I'm now trying to log in into our actual virtual machine on which we have promoted the snapshot. Let me go to my start menu and open up the application, which is Azure Storage Explorer. So click on Azure Storage Explorer. And you should see the difference now. The application that it is launching is with version 1.7.0, and the reason is we had taken a snapshot when our application version was 1.7.0, after which we upgraded that application to 1.8.1, in which we didn't find that version really useful because we lost the functionality of a couple of features, and that's why we have asked our application team, not application team, but rather infrastructure team, to roll back the original state of our virtual machine. So this is how snapshots work in Azure. And as I said earlier, uh, for our current demo, we had taken a virtual machine which was created with unmanaged disk. So the process of creating a snapshot for a managed disk is different versus the process for creating a snapshot and promoting the snapshot for VM created with unmanaged disk is different. Any questions, guys? Since we're done with the practical.
No.
No, sir.
What about others? Any questions, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please. You had a question, Akanksha? You said yes. No questions, guys? Please respond with yes, no.
No, sir.
No questions?
No, sir.
So once we take a snapshot of our VM, it will capture all the states, all the drives of the particular VM.
No. So when you take a snapshot in Azure, it does not work the way other virtualization product works, like VMware or Hyper-V. Okay, so in Azure, if you want to take a snapshot, it's a disk-wise snapshot and not a VM-based snapshot. So if your virtual machine contains, let's say, 4 VHDs, and you want to take a state of that VM, then you'll have to take a snapshot for 4 different VHDs. And when you restore it, you'll have to restore it one by one. So you'll have to restore the OS disk and then all the data disks. Hope that answers your question.
Yes.
Okay. Any other question, guys?
No.
Okay, I'll take the silence as no. Okay. All right, guys, then if you don't have any questions, we can wrap up this 1.5 hours meeting. Thank you everyone for joining this session. Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.